Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple hover system for your helicopters and also how to gain stable flight on them. And I'm also going to show how to make 6-blade rotors and also 5-blade rotors. So stay until the end of the video to learn how to do all of this. Alright, so I'm going to be showing off how to make this real simple hover system, which isn't mine. I took this from another guy's video, which I'm gonna be leaving in the description because it's a really good tutorial for this. If you want to learn how this works more in depth, you should totally check that video out. Alright, so for a hover system, which looks a little bit like this is what I use for all of my helicopters. We are gonna be using 4 logic gates. So we need a speed sensor, an OR logic gate, N logic gate, and a NOR logic gate. What we are going to do is we're going to add our speed sensor. It has to be facing downwards, and you're going to set the speed to 0. Next, we're going to add an OR logic gate. We're going to add an AND logic gate. Where is it? Here it is. And finally, we're going to add our NOR logic gate. So we have to hook up the OR logic gate into our AND logic gate, and the same for the NOR logic gate. Oh, and the speed sensor also has to go into the AND logic gate. So for our OR logic gate, the OR logic gate is going to be our on and off switch. So I want to turn my system on using T, and the NOR logic gate is going to be our way to lower our altitude. So let's say I want to go up using space and I want to go down using control. So I'll just set control into my NOR logic gate. And now all we have to do is connect the N logic gate into all the thrusters we want to hover with. Oh, but before continuing, don't forget to set the toggle input option on. And there we go. So now if I press space, I go up and I'll just stay there. As you can see, it's really stable. I can even get off the vehicle. I'll just stay there. And if I want to go down, I just press control and I should be able to go down. And if I want to turn it off again, I just press T and it should turn off, as you can see. Alright, but if you do this, you'll notice that you probably have your rotor set to the same keybind as your hover system. If you turn it off, your blade will probably turn off as well mid-air, which doesn't make much sense. So to fix this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add an XR logic gate and a distance sensor. We are gonna add a distance sensor facing downwards, and we're gonna turn the invert triggering option on. Just make sure this is as close to the ground as possible, so it turns off whenever it hits the ground, and you should be okay. So we're gonna grab our XR logic gate and we're gonna hook it up into our helicopter engine. Just make sure the helicopter engine doesn't have any inputs on it other than the XR logic gate connected to it. We're gonna use the exact same keybind to turn it on as our hover system. And also don't forget to set the toggle input option on. We're going to also hook up our distance sensor onto the helicopter engine. So now, if we fly and gain some altitude, if I turn the system off, you'll see that our rotor is still spinning, which is what we want to happen. And it will only turn off whenever our whole system is turned off and we're seeing the ground or we're touching the ground. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. Alright, so moving on how to make a stable flight for your helicopters, I'm gonna show this little contraption I made, which uses gyro stabilizers and normal gyros. So what this basically does, let's turn it on first. Oh, and just in case, I'm not using the hover system, I'm just using normal rotors, which I showed on my last video, but you can totally use the hover system, it doesn't matter. Anyways, so as you can see, if I go forwards, you'll see that there's a point where I stop pitching down. That's because of the gyro stabilizers, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. I did the same for the other planes, if that's what they're called. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to add some gyro stabilizers into your helicopter in order to have a stable flight. Alright, and you're gonna add some normal gyros, which always have to be on a lower strength than your gyro stabilizers. As you can see, I have 2 gyro stabilizers, which their strength adds up to 10, and I only have 1 gyro, which only has 5 strength. So these gyros are 10 strength, and this is only 5. It's the same for the roll. I have a 5 strength gyro, and this should be lower actually. Let's set it to like 2.50. As you can see, there's a point where I just stop like rolling on this case. The same for the pitch. Yeah, this is one of the easiest methods, but I think the only downside is that you don't have much control about it, like because you can only do this and that and this. You can't do any crazy maneuvers or stuff like that. I mean, of course you can do some logic to make these gyros turn off under certain conditions or under certain angles if you want, but I'm just showing you the easiest way to achieve this. A good example of doing this is what I did on my Seahawk, which uses the exact same system I just showed earlier. And I'm also using the hovering system. As you can see, I'm real stable. And I also have a little bit more of freedom when it comes to maneuvers because my normal gyro strength is almost the same as the gyro stabilizers. So yeah, that's why I have a little bit more control over it. And this is what it looks like. So you can see it's a real stable flight. I can also lower my altitude using control, and I just turn it off with T. Alright, so moving on, we have our second method, which is pretty much the same as the first one, but we're not using any gyro stabilizers on it. So you'll see that it's pretty much the same, but the difference is that I keep the same position that I started with. I don't know how to explain this, to be honest, but like you'll see what I'm talking about. So if I pitch down, you'll see that I stay there. Like I don't stabilize myself like with the gyro stabilizers. It just keeps going forwards. I did the same for the roll. As you can see, it's basically the same idea as the first contraption I showed you, but without the gyro stabilizer. So here I have a gyro at max strength without any inputs on it, and here I have two gyros at 2.5 strength each, and these ones do have my controls on them. So I'm using one gyro only for stabilization, so whenever I pitch forward, I keep the same position I want, as you can see. And the other ones are just for control. Pretty much the same idea. Just make sure your control gyros are on a lower strength than the main gyro you're using for stabilization. I did the exact same thing for the roll. This one is at 10 strength, and this one is at 5 strength with my inputs, and this one doesn't have any. Oh, and another thing is if you feel like your tail fins are not enough to avoid like going side to side, you can also add a gyro on the front to have an easier time dealing with that. Oh, you can also use it to control your yaw. And that's exactly what I did for this helicopter that I have, which is also using the hovering system as well as the last contraption that I showed you earlier. As you can see, I have way more freedom when it comes to controlling it. Alright, so last but not least, we have 6-blade rotors, or even 5-blade rotors, or even 7 or 8, whatever you like the most. So how can we make rotors to have more than 4 blades? That's actually really simple. So for example, what I did for this rotor is that I use hinges on each side, and I connected all of them into a NOR logic gate. So as you can see, whenever I spawn in, they automatically go into the angle that I set it to. Of course, this is up to you. You can set it to like 15 degrees if you want. As you can see, it's not too aggressive. So yeah, that's basically the way on doing it. Just keep in mind, this can get really glitchy sometimes because of how well groups work in this game, and it can also get really complex. Now, so when it comes to 5-blade rotors, you'll see that I did the exact same thing. All these hinges are connected into the same NOR logic gate, and they all have their own angles. But the only difference is that I used a piston to center the front blade, so it looks more natural. Of course, you don't have to do this. It's up to you. Oh, and also you can use any blocks you want. In my case, I use shields, and for this one I use some tubes and helicopter blades at the end of each blade. So yeah, it's really simple. Actually, if you want to see how I did this, let me show you real quick. So yeah, here's the rotor and here's the piston. As you can see, it's offset, and what I did is that I just set the start position to 0.15. You don't have to change any of this, it doesn't really matter. And whenever I spawn in, it just like centers itself so it doesn't look weird. So yeah, that's pretty much all you have to know to make. Oh god, what happened there? So yeah, that's pretty much all you have to know to make helicopters in this game. There's probably going to be another video about tail rotors, like in this case, but I don't think it's too complicated to deserve its own video. Like if you know how to do this, you totally know how to do a tail rotor. You just have to do the exact same thing but in a smaller scale. And yeah, that's it. See ya.